Alright, you guys, welcome back to the channel. This is officially the Barcelona seasons video roundup. I know that a lot of things are happening in the transfer market at the moment, but it just didn't feel right for my first video back with you guys to be about the transfer market and not closing out the season that we have just witnessed from FC Barcelona. So this video, we will be talking about my top 10 favorite moments from Barcelona this season. Now, I'm saying top 10, it could be less than that, but we will definitely try as much as we can to go through what I've seen this season and what stood out to me. But first, I have to give a very big shout out to FC Barcelona for sweeping up the La Liga end of season awards. We did get confirmation that Hansi Flick was voted coach of the year, Raphinha was named the La Liga player of the year, and Lamine Yamal was named the La Liga U23 player of the season. So again, congratulations to the team. But without further ado, let's dive in. But first, if you don't know me and you have never seen my videos, or maybe you've been seeing my videos and you've been watching without subscribing, hi guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I am just Max, and on this channel I talk about my love for football, for La Liga, for Barcelona, for even the Premier League, and definitely the UEFA Champions League. I'm just a chick who loves to talk football, and if that's something that you love to do as well, let's connect, because talking about football, growing this thing together is something that I strive for. Creating a community, a healthy space where we can all talk about our shared love for the game without any hate or without any controversy. So if that's something that you're very much interested in, please hit that subscribe button, share this video to somebody else who might also like what we're doing here, and yeah, we'll continue to grow. But let's dive in to this season's top 10 moments for Barcelona. For me, the match at number 10 is that Barcelona game versus Espanyol, and it's the one in November. Now, the reason why I say this is I remember where I was when I was watching that game. So I was watching the game, walking back to my house, and I saw that Espanyol, they came with an understanding of the way that they wanted to play. Barcelona had been implementing the high line for a minute now. It's been a very good 3 months that Barcelona have been doing that, catching team offside. But Espanyol were the first side that showed that they had done their research. They wanted to, break the offside trap, and certainly for moments there, I did feel like they did come with a plan and they looked like they were going to implement. But ultimately, the cream will always rise to the top, and Barcelona were able to figure out Espanyol's gameplay, which was balls over the top to break the Barcelona defense. And honestly, it's very funny when I look at it now, the way we played that game. Dani Olmo was definitely the star, and that first goal coming in within the first 20 minutes was very important for Barcelona, because Espanyol was building up steam very, very quickly. We needed something to be able to silence them definitely. But I also need to give credit to the neighbors, right? They played a sensational game that day. And even though Dani Olmo was able to put Barcelona through ahead through a very, very work team goal, they never backed down. They still kept on posing a threat to Barcelona. And I think that is the game that, if we look back on it, teams were going to look back and say, this is the way to play Barcelona. So even though Espanyol did lose the game 3-1, I think many of the teams in La Liga who did take points of Barcelona, or teams that beat Barcelona this season as a whole, would look at that Espanyol game as the blueprint to how you should do it. Because yes, Barcelona won 3-1, with 2 goals coming from Dani Olmo and 1 from Raphinha. But Espanyol did really show some really, really good moments as to how to play Barcelona. For Barcelona themselves, I like the way they were able to, what's one of my favorite moments, the active tinkering on the pitch. That's what I'm going to say. I saw them when they were trying to problem solve through that Espanyol to try to figure it out. And that was some of the things that will become critical for Barcelona moving forward, is being able to solve things quickly, even when it's not working for you. I really, really love that Dani Olmo's goal, the Trivela pass from Lamine Yamal to Dani Olmo. It was just sensational. Everything about that game screamed class. It screamed Barcelona at its finest, and it's why it is now my number 10 on the game. My number 9th game for the season is the Barcelona match between Sevilla, and now here's my reason, right? This is a 5-1 thumping of Sevilla, and for me, it's one of the few times I decided to think, oh wait, we might be on to something here. And I think this is the game. It was in October, so it's either before the Clásico or maybe just after. I'm not really sure. But Barcelona came out, they came out rocking. And one of the things I loved about that game is the diversity of the kinds of goals that we were able to see. We had range, we had long shots from Pedri, we had close like diversion shots from Robert Lewandowski. We did have long shots from Pablo Torre. We did have a penalty. So it's just the way that Barcelona, it was quick, exciting. The goals, they just kept on rolling in. 5-1 for Barcelona. We were getting a treat. Of course, granted, Sevilla are not in the best shape. They have not been in the best shape in La Liga this season. So it's not the same as, Sevilla of old. But to be able to beat any team 5-1 on the day is a sensational treat. It's one of the reasons why I love this game. The way they played, they were just so dominant from start to finish. Pablo Torre showed glimpses of, what he could do if given more opportunities. Lewandowski was literally at the point where he was rolling back the years. I really love this game. It showed what Barcelona under Hansi Flick were going to be about. It was all about quick pressing. It was all about suffocating the opponent's defense, and it was all about keeping the opposition guessing, because it could be a free kick, it could be a long shot, it could be a closed netter. You never know, because Barcelona, they just had a roster of things that they could come against you with, and that's why I love that game. Alright, 8 on my list for most exciting moments from Barcelona this season would be the Barcelona match versus Real Valladolid, and I believe that was in August. Now, hear me out. I think that's the moment when we realize this might be a good season, because we were treated to 7-goal thumping of Real Valladolid. It was sensational, and what I love about this is Barcelona's response. Now, we had just lost Marc Bernal to an ACL injury in the previous game day. Yeah, Barcelona came out in this match. We did see Raphinha score a hat-trick, and again, it was that game that made you think, wait, hold up now, this might be a really good season. We saw that connection between Lamine Yamal and Raphinha, that we started to see what the season might turn out to look like. We saw Barcelona setting that high line, but also breaking other people's offside traps as well, with Lewandowski's second goal for the game. We were able to see that Barcelona were able to gegen pressing other teams, like the suffocating press. It was something that kept Valladolid under pressure every time. Then he almost certainly had a game of, he was not on the score sheet, I don't think, but like he certainly had a game where he definitely could have scored a few goals in that match, because he had hit the woodwork. It was just barrage upon barrage upon barrage of pressure on Real Valladolid, and I loved every season of it. And it's the intensity and the purposefulness at which Barcelona attacked that game. That was something that I really had to sit down and think like, oh, we're in for a treat this season. Now, mind you, this is a season where nobody expected anything from Barcelona. This is around the same time in August. The season is just starting. Everybody's thinking to Real Madrid to set the tone for La Liga. And yet here is Barcelona scoring 7-0 on the day. Again, the reason why I love this particular match was because of what it offered to me as well. There was a time under Xavi Hernandez where if Barcelona was able to score 1-0 in a match, I would have been happy with it, and that's where we're coming from. And so to suddenly go from that to scoring hat-tricks in the game, to scoring 7-0s against Real Valladolid, to Raphinha, who was on the verge of leaving Barcelona, to having some very decisive play, scoring a hat-trick, combining with Lamine Yamal. And it's also the variety, like I said that again before, but it's the variety of goals and where they were coming from. Jules Koundé was on the score sheet for Barcelona. It's not just a dependence at the time on Robert Lewandowski to get the goal. The goal was coming from Raphinha. It was coming from Lewandowski, and for good measure, it was coming from the defense as well. Barcelona was in total domination mode, and it just set the tone for some of the things that we could expect of the season moving forward. And that is why that game is my number 8. Now, I have to also be honest, which is like I also saw that game and thought, I need to follow Barcelona more this season, because I followed them for the love, but for this season, after watching that game, I followed Barcelona because I knew we could do it. I knew it. Anyway, moving on to my 7th game of the season, it would be the Supercopa de España between Barcelona and Real Madrid. Now, I love this game. This was a pinnacle. This was Barcelona putting down the statement, like, listen, we're here. And yes, we know we are just coming back from a dip in La Liga, but we are still FC Barcelona, the most dominant team in La Liga this season, and we are here. Now, just to set the stage a little bit, the Supercopa de España happened in January. Barcelona were coming up from a run of form that was not the best. If you watch my earlier videos, actually, Barcelona's poor run of form was what launched this channel, me talking about football, because I was just so frustrated. And I think it's the game between Barcelona versus Las Palmas. I had just had enough and I needed somewhere to vent. And I literally turned on the camera for the first time ever and I recorded myself talking about Barcelona. Now, by the way, if you've watched up until this point, please consider subscribing to the channel and let me know how you're feeling the video so far. Let me know your thoughts about the games that I have just talked about. Do you remember them? How did you feel when you were watching those games? Let me know all about that in the comment section. I would absolutely love to hear from you. And of course, if you want to share this video to somebody else, please do that. I am trying to grow this channel and I will greatly appreciate it. Now, if you would like to get my content in short form bits, and I know I don't post a lot of shorts on here, I am very active on TikTok. Please go ahead and follow my TikTok. You will see I talk about Barcelona and football on the daily. I will leave that pinned in the description somewhere. But we are going to continue to the Supercopa de España. The form that Barcelona was coming off of was the reason I launched this channel. Barcelona had lost a few games. They'd lost against Atletico Madrid in December, and they had suddenly went from being first place 10 points ahead in La Liga to now being 3rd place. So I was a little bit frustrated, so I started this channel. And so coming into this match, this Supercopa, Barcelona had a little bit of rest. They were suffering from a bit of fatigue in December, so they had a little bit of rest, but we still did not know what we were going to get. I was a little bit nervous, I'm not going to lie. The first games against Athletic Club was really good. Barcelona came to fairly comfortably, and then we were able to play Real Madrid in the final, and it was always going to be a classic, right? Anytime Barcelona and Real Madrid meet, especially when there is a cup to be decided, it's always a classic. And so coming into this game, I was very nervous. Real Madrid did hit first, they hit hard, they scored very quick goals against Barcelona, and from that point, honestly, I think this is the game that really taught Barcelona what the rest of the season is going to look like, and which is, if you score 2 against us, you cannot rest, because we will come back and hit you hard. And that is what Barcelona did in that first half. Certainly, just immediately after Real Madrid scored, it was like, okay, let's reset, let's go into game mode. Lamine Yamal would get Barcelona started. Raphinha was on the score sheet. It was very, very, very lightning quick actions. Barcelona were cutting apart Real Madrid with surgical precision, and it was just a dream, an entire joy to watch from a Barcelona perspective. With Lamine Yamal bringing back Barcelona into the match, I loved it. And then it was, from then on, it was just lights out. Raphinha was on the score sheet. Lewandowski was on the score sheet. The way Barcelona was just mesmerizing Real Madrid with high pressing, very, very quick precision, just pushed them back. They just couldn't understand what was happening. Certainly, Lucas Vázquez was of no use to Real Madrid in that game. It was really the game that really solidified what Barcelona are on about in 2025. And I thought that it could have been more, because yes, Barcelona did score 5 in the first half, and it was like literally the most sensational half of football you're ever going to see. But also it could have been worse, because had Szczesny not brought down Mbappe and then got that red card. Barcelona were looking like they really wanted to add more goals in the second half, and Barcelona were just cutting through. But yeah, Szczesny did get that red card, and Yaki Pena did end up coming in for Szczesny, and then we did go 10 men down. And then we had to defend for a really long period of time. I think it was on the 50 something minute that happened, or maybe the 60 something minute. It could keep me honest in the comment section. And it was just from then on, just trying to weather the storm. And I think when Real Madrid scored that goal, I think it was through a free kick, give or take, which I thought Iñaki Peña should have, done better with. But like when Real Madrid scored that goal, I'm sure they felt like, oh, this is the start of a comeback. But Barcelona was very disciplined in defense. Again, it was a very team effort, and I really loved that. It was also the second Clásico that we were taking from Real Madrid, and of course the first trophy for Hansi Flick in his coaching career for Barcelona. So it was just that moment where you could and breathe. Yeah, at the end of the final whistle, it was really sensational. That brought that winning feeling back to us, the fan base, for me, to take 2 Clásicos from Real Madrid, and in the style that we did, it was just clear surgical precision. I loved it. It was one of definitely my top games, yeah, in this season for Barcelona. Now, my 6th game for the season, it has to be that game between Barcelona and Bayern Munich. Oh my goodness, when you saw the draw for the UEFA Champions League group stage this season, of course everybody had that Bayern Munich game circled in their calendar because of Bayern's history with Barcelona of recent. If you remember, Hansi Flick was at the helm of the Bayern Munich team that absolutely demolished Barcelona 8-2, and in a team that consisted of the legendary Lionel Messi. So to have things change, where this time around Hansi Flick is now sitting on the other side with Barcelona, it was always going to be a historic match. And of course, regardless of everything that Barcelona were doing in La Liga up until that point, the test was always going to be in the Champions League. How were we going to be able to respond when the lights were the brightest, where the focus were more intense? How were we going to be able to react? Barcelona have historically, over the last few seasons, fallen short when it came to playing Bayern Munich. We've not really done well. They've had their way with us on a few occasions now. Not just that 8-2 defeat, but even subsequent defeats to Bayern Munich. And the Bavarian certainly walked into the Monday week with confidence, especially knowing that recent history were on the side. And for much of Barcelona, much of the media, it was always about how would Barcelona be able to overcome their first major big test. And again, I have to mention that it was a week of big tests. It was the week of the Clásico as well. So it was a really big week for Barcelona, if we wanted to be honest. So I really loved it. And the reason I loved it is how Barcelona started the game, and within the first 1 minute, Barcelona had already scored. And that's something I want to talk about, is how Hansi Flick's style of football is different from previous Barcelona styles of football, in that Hansi Flick is more precision based. He wants to get possession, not for the sake of possession's sake, but for the sake of that we need to score goals. And within the first 1 minute of the game, Barcelona were able to cut through the Bayern Munich defense within 3 passes, and they'd already scored. And it was just indicative of what Hansi Flick's philosophy and that high press and that suffocating gegenpressing was all about. Raphinha definitely was the star of the show for Barcelona against Bayern Munich. He did have a hat-trick, but one of the favorite goals for me that he scored in that match was the overhead pass. Now, I don't know who gave that pass. Was it Marcus Sado maybe? And he just running at what's his name, Manuel Neuer, and slotting it for the third. And I thought that was a really sensational goal. And of course, Robert Lewandowski did score in the goal in this match against his old team. So it just put together the entire moment for Barcelona, and this was one of my best game. I have lived for revenge on Bayern Munich for a very, very long time. I have dreamt of it, and for me and for many Barcelona fans, seeing Barcelona be able to take apart Bayern Munich, it was like therapy. Like, we've lived for this moment, and to finally get it the way that we got it, it was the best therapy money could buy, and it was free. UEFA Champions League football, yeah, therapy for me. I loved it. Now, the game against Borussia Dortmund comes in as my favorite for Barcelona, and I'll tell you why. Because again, Barcelona have often been cut short in Europe. So the standards, again, regardless of whatever we were doing in La Liga, how we were cutting apart teams, how we're setting the high line, it was always going to be, how can you respond in Europe? Right? How can you take it to the next phase? And Barcelona in the quarterfinal versus Borussia Dortmund was, I am here, take me seriously. And again, it was all about that Barcelona's deadly front that was just taking apart that Dortmund defense. They just never really had an answer. The domination, the sheer total domination. And I liked the fact that Barcelona took advantage of the home. They played at home the first leg, and they really took advantage of that. The crowd was involved. You know, the quarterfinal stages for Barcelona has been our kryptonite in recent season. So the crowd was really engaged. The Barcelona trio was really focused. Everything just kept on clicking. Yes, Dortmund did end up scoring 2 goals in that game, and due to some minor defensive lapses here and there, which is something that we would see in the Inter Milan game in this next leg. But at the time, it was really a sensational match for how Barcelona were able to seize victory out of that semi-finals or quarterfinals, I should say rather, and just ensure that they just beat down a very spirited Dortmund side. I loved it. And by the way, if you did not watch my reviews when those matches happened, please go back and watch them. I'm going to leave the cards somewhere. Leave those matches linked in the cards. I reviewed the UEFA Champions League games this season. Of course, when I started talking about football, I reviewed those matches. So go back and watch what I had to say about that, because I loved what Barcelona, but the fact that Barcelona were able to win. But I did identify at the time that the defense needed to tighten up a little bit at the time. But again, that sheer joy of being able to come through something that has been a stumbling block for us in recent season, euphoric. Loved it. Now the fourth, oh my god, this is a game. I screamed, I lost my voice. If I talk to you about this game, have you subscribed to the channel? If you're watching and you're still watching up until this point, please consider subscribing to this channel. I really would love that. I really would love to have you be part of what we're building here. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and give me a comment in the comment section. Let me know how you felt when you watched these games. Let me know what was your favorite Barcelona moment this season if you're a Barca fan, or if you're not even a Barca fan, let me know what was the favorite moment for your favorite club this season in the comment section. I want to hear from you. But going back to the fourth, sensational game this season, it would be that Copa del Rey final between Barcelona and Real Madrid. Now, let me tell you why. Up until this point, Barcelona had played this would have been the third El Clásico of the season. Barcelona had played Real Madrid twice before. Barcelona had beaten Real Madrid sensationally twice before. We'd won the Supercopa de España on the heads of Real Madrid. So, and of course, this was another opportunity for a title to be decided, and this time it was a Copa del Rey. Real Madrid had already been knocked out of the Champions League, so they really had it all to play for the Copa del Rey and the La Liga. So they really wanted this trophy, and of course it's an El Clásico match. Like we always say, whenever it's an El Clásico match, it's on, so getting out from the get-go, I felt like, could it be the day when Barcelona would be able to beat Real Madrid 3 times in a row in El Clásico? Could that happen? And I had hope, I had faith, but I had nerves as well. And Barcelona boys just told me to chill. They got this. Because we got started with a Pedri masterclass. What a game that he was having in midfield. But not just his game in midfield, also it was the fact that he opened the scoring for Barcelona. And within that first half, I thought that Barcelona should have had a penalty. They should have, which, listen, I'm not going to talk about, the refereeing calls that Barcelona did not get. If we wanted to talk about that, we will stay here all season long, because this season was a season that was quite curious between Barcelona and La Liga. I'm not going to talk about the refereeing calls. I'm just going to talk about, like, I felt like Barcelona should have scored more for the amount of possession they had, the way they outplayed Real Madrid. I thought Barcelona really could have scored more goals. I thought they could have really done more with what they had. But in terms of just sheer footballing brilliance, you're watching, you're enjoying the passes, you're enjoying the way the game is developing. Certainly, if you were a neutral, you couldn't care less. It was a sensational display. It was a sensational half. It was another half of football where, if you're a Real Madrid fan, you realize that the gulf between Real Madrid and Barcelona is wide, but on the negative side for your team, because going into the season, everybody expected Real Madrid to be the more dominant side. Certainly, they had acquired Kylian Mbappe over the last transfer windows, so they should be better. But this season, it just was not. And I must acknowledge the fact that Real Madrid were beset with injury this time around. So some of the things they could control, some of the things it was not their fault. But certainly the footballing brilliance, it was different. There was a gulf. Barcelona were just sensational. They were lights out. Real Madrid could not get on the ball, because for you to get on the ball, you need to get it off Barcelona. And if Barcelona very, very good at keeping the ball. And I thought in that game, watching them, also the way Barcelona were pressing, it's ridiculous. So when you even get the ball from Barcelona, they're really quick on you, like cheaters. Like, they just pounce on you very quickly with numbers and recover the ball very, very quickly. The only thing was Barcelona did not take the advantage that they had, which was, to score more goals in that first half. Real Madrid did come back into the game in the second half. They had a better shape. They grew in confidence. They scored 2 goals, which quickly knocked the wind off of Barcelona's sails. And at that moment, if you were a Madridista, you would have been thinking, oh, finally, we are going to go ahead and do our remontada. And, we're the kings of remontada. But this season, Barcelona proved to be the remontada kings themselves, because inside Real Madrid's remontada, there was still another remontada brewing. And it was through Ferran Torres, who just in the dying minutes, I want to say the 80th something minutes, was able to fire Barcelona level with Real Madrid, and it was like pandemonium. I screamed my voice out, and honestly, it's not just because it's an El Clásico. There was a title on the line. And then when we did go into extra time, to have Jules Koundé be the decider, and of course assisted by Luka Modric, even though it was not his fault, but Real Madrid really, really dropped off. They were the more rested team, but they were the more exhausted team at the same time. Just to see the way Barcelona were more fit, they were more fresh, they were more determined, and the way Jules Koundé was able to pounce on that loose ball and shoot from lights out. And honestly, if someone would have told me at the start of the season that Jules Koundé will win Barcelona the Copa del Rey, I probably would have believed it, but from a defensive point of view, not from an attacking point of view. But that's what football is all about. You never know. And that was Barcelona's second trophy of the season, and third time beating Real Madrid. And every time Barcelona beats Real Madrid, chef's kiss. Love it. Alright, so my third favorite game of the season, again, it involves Real Madrid, and this one because it decided La Liga. It is the game between Barcelona and Real Madrid that ended 4-3 at the Montjuic, which, I did say I'm not going to talk about the refereeing, so let's move on. Barcelona had already collected the Copa del Rey from Real Madrid. Real Madrid absolutely needed to stay on pace. They were on 4 points behind Barcelona at this point in the season. It was just they needed to secure a win. They really needed to keep the La Liga competitive up until the final days. We're running out of games, and they really, really needed to win this one. And the reason why this was one of my favorite games this season was because Barcelona were able to prove something which they were showing much of the season, which was that they were the comeback kings. Real Madrid started the game really, really well. They went 2 very quick goals ahead. And honestly, it was looking not very good. But the way Barcelona was able to reel it back in, a goal from Lamine Yamal, a goal from I think 2 goals from Raphinha. It was a pandemonium the way they were able to come back from 2-0 down. They did go 4-2 up, and then Real Madrid did end up coming back 4-3. It was sensational, and it was the game that decided La Liga. And again, it was the 4th consecutive thrashing of Real Madrid in the league. This one was a little bit more closer than the previous ones. Thanks to the ref. I did think that Fermin Lopez goal should have stood. You know what? I did say I'm not going to talk about the refereeing decision. So, yeah, that was definitely my 3rd favorite of the season. Loved it. Because again, it decided the league, and I was here for it. Absolutely, I was here for it. And now my 2nd favorite match, and we're leading up to the big one, my 2nd favorite match of the season, it has to be that Raphinha sensation against Benfica, 3-1 in the round of 16 for Barcelona. And honestly, Raphinha against Benfica this season, every single time, it was sensational. I loved it. I really did. I know I said that's semi-final, but I should say Raphinha versus Benfica this season, because starting from the group stage to the first leg of the round of 16 where Barcelona went down 10 men, and Barcelona, Raphinha pulled up with a long range outside shot to win that game despite Barcelona being 10 men down, or Chesney having to weather the storm, making, I think, if I remember correctly, 8 to 9 saves in a single match, and then coming back to the Montjuic, and Raphinha putting in another sensational performance. Listen, I've always said it. I think that Raphinha was the best player in Europe this season. He was definitely the Ballon d'Or. He had Ballon d'Or performances all season long. He was big for Barcelona. Even in the moments when people claimed that Raphinha fell off at the latter edges of the season, he still was contributing goals and assists. But I think his performance against Benfica this season, it was just the reason why I felt like take that Ballon d'Or, my man. Coming up with clutch goals, coming up with clutch performances. 2 goals against Benfica at the Montjuic. It was just sensational stuff. So Raphinha versus Benfica, yeah, that is my 2nd favorite of the season. So I don't want to reduce it to just the game, the 2nd game, because every time Raphinha saw Benfica this season, it was on sight, and I loved it. I lived for it forevermore. When I think about that black Barcelona jersey this season, I will always remember Raphinha versus Benfica, because my goodness, what a performance. I still cannot believe that Raphinha did not win the player of the season for the UCL. I certainly thought that he was deserving of it. He had the most goals, he had the most assists as well, and he had very, very big clutch performances. Granted that Barcelona did not make it to the UEFA Champions League finals because they ended up getting knocked out in the semi-finals to Inter Milan under controversial circumstances, in my opinion, but I digress. But I still think that the performances he'd put up until that point was deserving of the player of the season. UEFA disagreed with me. They did end up giving that award to Ousmane Dembele for his performance in the finals, but I thought Raphinha was definitely the man of the season. He in the Champions League this season. Sensational. That brings me to my final game for the season, which is my top game of the season. But first, before we talk about that, please like and subscribe, share this video to your family, friends, relatives, well-wishers, or anybody within your circle who would definitely enjoy recapping Barcelona's season and chit-chatting about what a sensation we witnessed this season. But please do that. I would certainly appreciate it. Now, if you haven't also take a moment to follow my TikTok. I post there every single day. I have already started talking about the transfer market on TikTok. So if you want to know all about the stuff that is going on in the Barcelona universe right now, please go ahead and follow me on TikTok. It is the Just Max Show on TikTok, or you can click the link in the description below to get you there. Now, my top game of the season, again, it has to be Real Madrid versus Barcelona at the Santiago Bernabeu. Now, the reason why I chose that game for my top game of the season was that was a game that was asterisked in the calendar for many reasons. Real Madrid had acquired Kylian Mbappe, the pace of Mbappe, the speed of Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, Bellingham, Modric, Federico Valverde. These were the pieces that Real Madrid had put in place to overwhelm and suffocate Barcelona out of the league. Now, Hansi Flick and Barcelona, for their own part, they were playing a very risky style of football, that high line. And every week in La Liga, we would hear things like, surely he would not play that high line at the Santiago Bernabeu. Surely he knows not to do that. Surely he knows that. Like, if he plays the high line with the pace of Mbappe, with the speed of Vinicius Jr., Barcelona will not be able to survive it, right? Surely he knows that. And so it was like every single time, they're like, if he did that, we will cut them apart. And so when Barcelona kept on playing that high line leading up to El Clásico, it was the game where most pundits and most fans were looking to expose Hansi Flick and Barcelona. And the way Barcelona turned up to that meeting was sensational, because it was, I would say, a match that made Europe sit up and say, well, hold up a minute. Now we need to take this Barcelona team seriously. Because Barcelona walked into the Santiago Bernabeu and silenced the haters, they silenced the crowd, and they silenced the pundits by winning with a whooping 4-0. And it was the first of many similar whoopings for Real Madrid. Now, I think when Real Madrid fans think of El Clásico and Barcelona this season, they're going to want to cover their face and never have to think about it again. But from a Barcelona perspective, it was that moment when you were thinking to yourself, oh yeah, we're bad like that. Because the first goal for Robert Lewandowski, it was that very good header. I want to say the first goal might have been the second goal. It was the header. Nobody picking up one of the deadliest, one of the greatest strikers in Europe in the box, had a very good header. And then secondly, it was like the fact that Barcelona were able to break Real Madrid's defense and offside trap of their own. I think it was a pass from Marc Casado, who scanned and saw Robert Lewandowski just isolated and just alone, puts a very good true pass to Robert Lewandowski, and he scored that goal. And you, at that moment, you were looking like, surely he must have been offside. He was not. Would you look at that? And Barcelona suddenly 2-0 up. And as if we're still trying to figure out what has happened, Lamine Yamal comes up with a combination between Raphinha and Lamine Yamal. And of course, it comes to Lamine Yamal on his right foot, his left-footed. And at this point, you would think he wants to cut inward to, get it on his preferred left foot, which would give the defense a little bit more space to adjust and react. He decided not to do that. And instead he takes it on his right foot, a very powerful shot, and Barcelona are suddenly 3-0 up. And just because, for good measure, press down, shaking it together, Raphinha as the gloss on top with a very good run to find him, and he is slotting it for 4-0 from the right hand. It was a total performance. And to add insult up onto injury, it was the way Barcelona just kept on catching Mbappe offside, and I think he set the record for the most offside in a single game that game, and that was like 8 times. Like, he was 8 times offside. and I loved it. I lived for it. I lived for it. I listen, when I tell you I lived for that game, oh wow. It was orgasmic. I lived for it. I lived for that game. Oh, what a sensation. What a game. Just thinking back onto it now, the reaction, the way we saw it, it was a very, very good week for Barcelona. It was a week when we beat Bayern Munich as well. The week when the Ballon d'Or was held as well. When Lamine Yamal was named the Copa, he was given the Copa trophy. It was a really, really good week for Barcelona. Aitana Bonmati won the female Ballon d'Or. It was a really, really good week for the club. We went on to extend our lead at top of La Liga, but obviously it also was the beginning of some not very, very good moment, which we're not going to talk about right now. But the most important part was that was my absolute favorite game. Now, it has not escaped me that most of my favorite games this season involved Real Madrid and Barcelona, and that's because we had an abundance of Clásicos this season. We really did. We were spoiled for Clásicos, but there were so many other games that we had this season that I didn't get to talk about. The Inter Milan game, for example, was an immediate classic. Whether that be the home game or the away game, it was an instant classic. Barcelona coming back 3-3, Barcelona coming down, from a 2-0 to go 3 up at Milan. It was all an instant classic. The performances of Raphinha and Lamine Yamal in those games, sensational. Or the games between Atletico Madrid and the Copa del Rey could have been another one. Barcelona coming down from a 2-0 deficit in the first leg against Atletico Madrid to ending up that game 4-4. It might have been 4-4, and then going on to win in Atletico Madrid. Or maybe it would have even been, or we could even talk about the game with Atletico Madrid in the return leg in the La Liga this time around at the Wanda Metropolitano, and how Atletico Madrid had to go up first and Barcelona came back, and then it was a comeback that was even initiated by Inigo Martinez. There was so many wonderful games this season. I could not pick enough of them. I just narrowed down to the ones that stood out to me the best. And this has been it. So honorary mentions to those Atletico Madrid games as well. They were sensational. But that is it. This has been my Barcelona recap for the season. The next time that you see me, we will be here to talk about what is happening with Ter Stegen and Barcelona signing a new goalkeeper and all of the latest news from the club. But like I say, I'm already talking about those things in short form content on TikTok. Follow me at the Just Max Show on TikTok. You wouldn't want to miss it. I upload there every single day on TikTok, so please go there and follow me for those quick videos if you're not ready to wait for me to put together a really, really long video like this one. But up until next time, it has been sensational covering Barcelona this season. I have loved every minute of it. Let me know what was your favorite game this season, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.